If you've ever asked, why do people cheat even when they say they love you? Then you're not alone. Infidelity isn't just about sex, it's about unmet needs, resentment, and emotional disconnection. As a couples therapist, I've seen firsthand how this unfolds. Not in the dramatic way that movies tell,
That's my wife, you asshole.
but slow, subtle unfolding of dangerous underlying patterns in the relationship. Today, we're going to go beyond blame. We're going to look at the science of infidelity, what the research says, what I've seen in the therapy room, and most importantly, how you can begin to protect your relationship against this taking place for you too. So let's get into it. Let's start with the numbers. According to research from the Institute of Family Studies, about 20% of married men and about 13% of married women report having cheated at some point during their lifetime. But those numbers actually shift when you look at younger couples. Cheating rates are almost equal now, with about 10 to 11% of both men and women in relationships admitting to infidelity. So if you've been operating under the assumption that men are always the ones to stray, then the data actually tell a more complex story here. And then there's this curious detail too that comes up, which is around age. The age of 39 appears to be some kind of infidelity hotspot for people. And that could just be because 39 is kind of a big number in people's lives. Many people are going through some of the most stressful points in their lives with their children, where their children are very young, and maybe they've been in their relationship with their partner for a number of years, which is often enough time for serious stress and resentment to begin building up to the point where people tend to look outside of their relationship. Psychologist Justin Lehmiller highlights this in his research, suggesting that 39 may reflect a threshold age where people can reevaluate their lives, their identity, and often unmet desires as well. 39 is one of those points where you're realizing you're getting older and you start to look back at the life that you've lived and identify things that you might want to be different in this second chapter of life coming up soon. Now let's talk about biology. Now, evolutionary biology has a lot to say about the science of cheating and affairs. Biologically, humans are both wired for connection and novelty. Evolutionary psychologists talk about these dual strategies that humans employ in mating dynamics. One is aimed towards stability and child rearing, and the other is aimed at sexual variety and genetic diversity. So as humans, we have this kind of push-pull dynamic where we both crave safety and turn to our relationships to support that sense of safety, but we're also drawn to stimulation, to novelty, to newness. Men and women alike have evolved mechanisms that support short-term mating opportunities and also long-term relationship bonds. But here's where it gets deeper. This is where attachment theory adds a really significant nuance to this discussion, I think. From an attachment perspective, we are wired to form a primary attachment bond with another person as an adult. This is a person that we turn to for safety, co-regulation, emotional grounding, and felt sense of security. Dr. Stan Tatkin, the founder of the psychobiological approach to couples therapy, emphasizes this beautifully when he talks about how even in polyamorous relationships, people still tend to organize around a single core attachment figure in that partnership. Now, that doesn't mean that monogamy is the only valid organizational structure for our relationships. Far from it. But it does mean that our nervous systems still tend to orient toward having a single home base, someone we can depend on, someone who emotionally holds us. That's really important for us as humans. In fact, research suggests that our need for a core, secure attachment partner, what's often called a primary attachment figure, remains foundational, regardless of the type of relational structure that you're in. No matter if you're in a polyamorous relationship or a monogamous relationship. Emotional regulation and safety aren't optional in adult romantic relationships. And when that bond is threatened, either by neglect, avoidance, or some type of betrayal, it destabilizes not just trust, but the entire attachment system that person is in. So affairs don't just threaten monogamy. They rupture your core experience of safety and emotional belonging. So all of that is to say, when we talk about cheating, we're not just talking about broken promises. We're talking about broken attachments. And when people cheat, it's often not just about desire for another person, although that does play a role. It's often about the pain of disconnection that they're feeling within that primary attachment bond. So what makes a person more likely to cheat? Researchers have identified a range of predictors that can predict whether or not your relationship is more or less likely to end in an affair. And some are individual and some are relational. So let's talk about what they are. So one, men still typically cheat more overall in their relationships, but the gap is narrowing. According to the research, women's affairs tend to be more emotionally involved, and women tend to often report more guilt afterwards. Personality can also play a role here. So those that are high in narcissism, low in agreeableness, or low in conscientiousness, some of those big five personality traits that everyone exhibits, well, those people are more likely to cheat. And that makes sense. If you are more narcissistic, more focused on yourself, less agreeable with your partner, so less likely to just placate them by following the rules, and low in conscientiousness, so you're thinking about other people less in the first place, then it makes sense that you would be more willing to break the rules of your relationship and go outside that relationship for comfort, support, or simply sexual desire. These are also traits that correlate with lower empathy, poor impulse control, or a sense of entitlement, all of which are red flags if you see those coming up in your partner in your relationship. A 2011 study published by the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships also found that people who cheated in the past are much more likely to cheat again. Age is another factor here. I already talked about that number 39, but also men tend to be more at risk for infidelity between the ages of 55 and 65, while women tend to peak in their risk between 40 and 45 due to the type of stage that those people may be in their relationship at that point in their lives. These moments often become tipping points for people, where people start seeking novelty or validation rather than confronting the emotional emptiness that they're feeling directly, head on with their partner in their current relationship. Then there's the relationship itself. Most affairs don't happen because of one big argument or a steamy conversation in a hotel cocktail bar, although the movies often depict things that way. They build slowly in the emotional gaps that happen between people over the course of a long period of time. Research consistently shows that a low relationship satisfaction, emotional invalidation, rising contempt, and unresolved conflict are prime predictors of infidelity. When affection dries up and emotional repair gets skipped, then that becomes the breeding ground for betrayal in a relationship. A lot of the clients that I see in couples therapy come in because they simply stop being a team. They are living parallel lives where emotional disconnection becomes the norm and where they're simply going about the motions, and maybe they're both craving that emotional connection, but they've both kind of resigned themselves to not getting it because they've tried again and again, and one or both partners just don't seem interested. This kind of disconnection and loneliness creates the perfect breeding ground for one partner to begin looking for that same kind of emotional comfort, support, validation, and that attachment reassurance that they used to get in their partner outside of the relationship. One more reason is sexual dissatisfaction. Now, often this is a symptom of bigger issues in the relationship. When people feel connected to each other and they're putting in the inputs into the relationship that foster a connected, strong, secure base, then often sexual issues don't come up that much, because you're taking care of everything else that can lead to those feelings of desire. And that's what the research says too. It's actually less about the frequency of sex happening in the relationship than it is about the feelings of connection that come from having sex. When couples stop being curious about one another, or when sexual intimacy starts to feel like a duty rather than something that both people are interested in or shared experience, then it's not just about the sex. It's about feeling emotionally dead inside the relationship. Many who cheat come to couples therapy describing feeling invisible to their partner. And affairs become a way to feel desired, to feel excited, to feel seen again. This is something that Esther Perel talks about in her book, Mating in Captivity and the State of Affairs. How a lot of affairs happen because people are seeking novelty, newness, this vivaciousness of life that they used to find within their relationship. And in order to prevent an affair from happening in your relationship, you need to bring that newness, that vitality, that connection to your relationship with your partner at whatever stage you're at. That's the big thing here, is to keep your relationship from sliding out from under you and turning into one where an affair might take place. You have to put in the effort to keep it feeling alive, keep that connection strong with your partner. So why do people cheat? Well, the research says that the motivations vary, but they fall into a few themes. Some cheat because they've fallen out of love and they just don't know how to leave their partner. Others are chasing novelty. Some act from low self-esteem, thinking that the affair will reaffirm their sense of self-worth and validate their desirability. Others act out of revenge or unresolved resentment. And then there's simple impulsivity. Wrong time, wrong place, with no emotional regulation being present to help you make a better decision. One thing that rarely gets talked about is how often cheating risk can actually show up before marriage even happens. Studies show that poor emotional communication, low sexual satisfaction, and chronic invalidation in premarital relationships strongly predict later infidelity. And you can see the themes here, they keep recurring. If you are not investing in fostering that emotional connection and healthy communication patterns with your partner, then marriage doesn't necessarily matter. The box of marriage is not going to keep you from having an affair. The important thing is building up those factors that are going to protect you and your partner because they foster emotional intimacy and closeness. And finally, context matters too. People with higher socioeconomic status actually tend to cheat more often, simply because they have more opportunity. Business trips, financial autonomy, social freedom are all factors that can help that person find more opportunities to cheat in their day-to-day life. Can you cheat-proof your relationship? Well, unfortunately, not entirely. There are certain things within life that are not fully within our control, and another person's actions are one of them. You can never 100% guarantee that your partner is not going to cheat on you, but you can reduce the risk dramatically. Keep that emotional connection alive. Validate your partner regularly. Don't let resentment fester. Stay curious about each other's evolving needs over time. Talk about attraction and temptation in your relationship. Don't make it taboo so the other person has to push it down. Normalize having repair conversations with your partner when you get into conflict, and align on shared values and agreements around boundaries in your relationship. What is okay and what is not okay? Remember, trust is not a one-time promise. It is a constant practice and skill to be developed between two people, even if you've been in a relationship for a long time. If you've been on the receiving end of infidelity, then you're probably asking, how do I ever trust again? That's one of the most painful pieces of infidelity, is the betrayal. It destabilizes not only your immediate relationship, but your entire attachment system. And it is so painful. You may feel anxious, hypervigilant, or emotionally avoidant in future relationships. But I just want to say that healing is possible. And the research backs this up. It starts by understanding this. Their cheating wasn't about your worth. It was about their ability or inability to sit with discomfort, to express their needs, and to manage conflict. And whether you choose to rebuild their relationship or move on, your healing is going to be about restoring your own emotional safety and self-trust. But it is possible. Infidelity doesn't have to be the end of the story here, but it should act as a wake-up call. And if you're going to rebuild, take it as a sign that you and your partner need to work on some of the things that we mentioned so far in this video. Now, if this video was helpful to you at all, please give it a like, comment on the video, share it with somebody who may benefit from it. The more that you can do those things, the more it builds momentum for this channel, and the more it keeps me motivated to continue to make videos like this for you. So thank you so much for watching today. And if you're interested, check out my next video, which I'll link down below after it's posted, where I'll talk about how couples can rebuild trust after betrayal and what real remorse actually looks like. Thank you.